So what really makes a leader? Is it something you're born with or something you have to prove? Today, we're going to dive into the life of an ancient leader named Enos, and his story gives us a pretty surprising answer and a powerful lesson on what to do when the world around you is falling apart.
I mean, it's a huge question, right? For thousands of years, people have argued about this. Is leadership just about who your dad was, passed down through bloodlines? Or is it something you've got to earn through your character and your actions? Well, the story of Enos gives us a fascinating answer, straight from the dawn of human history.
All right, so let's get into it. Our story starts with a really big choice. In a world where your family name was pretty much everything, a decision was made that basically flipped the script on what it meant to be the next one in line.
You know, the historical records from back then are super specific, but not in the way you might think. It's not like one of those giant, sprawling family trees you see online. Nope. It's more like a single, laser-focused line, tracing only who's in charge. Their whole goal was just to document who held the priestly authority, one man per generation. And this is where it gets really interesting. We all kind of think of ancient times and just assume, well, the oldest son gets everything. But not here. In this particular lineage, the number one factor wasn't your birth order, it was your worthiness. So a patriarch would look at his sons, and the job didn't automatically go to the firstborn. It went to the most worthy son, even if he was younger.
Okay, so how do we know Enos was chosen for his worthiness and probably wasn't the oldest? Well, the clue is hiding in a single number, 105. That's how old his father, Seth, was when Enos was born. Now think about this. Seth's own dad, Adam, was already a great-grandfather by the time he was 130. So it's almost certain that Seth had older sons. This little detail is a huge clue that Enos wasn't just next in line, he was chosen because he was the right man for the job.
But getting picked was just step one. It wasn't like he got a crown and a corner office the next day. Enos was about to start an apprenticeship that is, well, it's kind of hard to even wrap your head around. Over 100 years of training for this one role.
Yeah, get this, 134 years. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's how long his dad, Seth, personally trained him, and that was before he was even officially ordained by his grandpa, Adam. So we're not talking about a weekend leadership seminar here. This was over a century of careful preparation for a massive responsibility.
And all that training, it turned Enos into this incredible mix of a scholar and a prophet. He wasn't just learning religious theory. He became fluent in the pure language of Adam, this perfect way of communicating. He could read it, he could write it, and he even helped put together their sacred record, the Book of Remembrance. And the final step? He was ordained by Adam himself. So you see, Enos wasn't just chosen, he was literally forged into the leader he needed to be.
Okay, so we've got a leader chosen for his character, trained for over 100 years. You'd think he's ready for anything, right? Well, he was going to need every single bit of that training, because the world he was stepping into, it was getting dark, fast.
And listen, the record is brutally honest about it. It says flat out that Satan had great dominion among men. And what came from that? Wars and bloodshed. We're not talking about a society with a few small problems here. This was a world on the edge of collapse, a world that was totally hostile to everything Enos stood for.
So as more people started filling the land, things just got worse. It was a time of total chaos. I mean, the text says a man's hand was against his own brother. People were creating these secret groups just to grab power, and the whole culture was just drowning in greed and violence. That was the volatile world Enos had to try and navigate.
So what do you do? How do you lead when it seems like no one wants to listen? Well, Enos's answer was both practical and prophetic. He didn't just stand there and preach against the darkness. No, he took bold, decisive action and led the faithful on a great migration to find a new beginning.
And their destination was what the scriptures call a land of promise. Now, this isn't just about finding a nicer piece of real estate. A land of promise is something specific. It's a place you're guided to by God, a sanctuary where your community can flourish far away from all the chaos.
So Enos gathered up who the text calls the residue of the people of God, basically the faithful few who were left, and he led them out of their homeland, a place called Shulong. He organized this whole massive migration, guiding his community to a new land where they could finally build a righteous society. And as a symbol of this new start, he named the land after his own son, Canaan.
Okay, here's a quick but super important detail, because the names are almost identical. The land Enos's people settled was called Canaan. That's spelled with an I. There's another, totally different land settled later by the descendants of Cain called Canaan, spelled with 2 A's. It's a small difference, but it's vital for understanding the 2 completely different paths these groups of people took. And this reveals a really fascinating leadership strategy. Guess who didn't go with them? Adam and Seth. The top leaders stayed behind. The record is clear, it was just Enos and the residue of the people of God who left. This suggests a deliberate plan. Enos was given the authority to go build a new, protected society, while Adam and Seth stayed behind to continue their difficult mission among the very people Enos's group had left.
So, after a life of huge challenges and incredibly bold decisions, what was the ultimate legacy of Enos? Let's zoom out and take a look at the full scope of his long and purposeful life.
I mean, his life spanned an unbelievable amount of time. He was born way back around 3765 BC, ordained after that epic 134-year apprenticeship, and then led his people to a new land to escape a decaying world. He presided over them for centuries, all the way until his death in 2860 BC.
In total, his life lasted 905 years. It's just a mind-boggling figure, isn't it? It really underscores the sheer scale of his influence. For nearly a millennium, Enos stood as a pillar of stability and righteous leadership in a very chaotic time.
So the story of Enos leaves us with this timeless question. When you see society starting to fall apart, what's the right move? Do you stay and try to fix it from the inside, or do you leave and build something new somewhere else? What's so fascinating is that Enos and his father Seth chose both paths. One stayed to minister, and the other left to preserve. It's a strategic dilemma that makes this ancient story feel more relevant than ever.